there's four major pillars in an organization that I always give guidance to people to evaluate whenever you're going to either make a shift or decide to stay. And it's typically market. Is the market got, chops to it over the next few years? And then does the technology address that market? And so far, so good. But then let's go into leadership for a second. A little bit about yourself. Let's talk about that. Let's also talk about the teammates, the world-class KOLs associated with this, and then even the investors. So your background for our audience.
So yeah, I mean, I'm a bit of a hybrid. So I'm an American, but have been in Europe now for a little over 20 years. Started in kind of a very early stage venture capital, MedTech stuff. Ended up co-founding a medical device company in the continuous glucose monitoring space, which failed very quickly, right? And I think that's a great introduction to what we do, because there is a lot of failure, and there's also a lot of learning that comes from failure. And part of what I took out of that was, hey, I think I want to learn what is kind of best in class medtech. So I went and joined Medtronic's European headquarters. I worked in cardiac surgery for a few years. Went up and actually worked with Pat Mackin, CEO of CryoLife now, but he was running vascular back then. Went up to run Nordic Vascular for 3 years out of Stockholm, which was fantastic. Great experience, kind of carrying the bag, 3 different sales teams and 3 different businesses in 5 countries. And so it was, that was exciting. And then I came back and was the marketing director for coronary and peripheral for Medtronic in Europe, which right when we were, this was the height of the drug-eluting stent, kind of era, and hyper competitive markets, right? And really, toe-to-toe with, Abbott and Boston, and so that was a tremendously exciting time as well. And then I actually left to go back to startups, which is kind of, when I went into Medtronic, I'm like, I'm going to spend 2 years. I'm going to learn, and I'm going to be back in startups. And you get sucked into the whole thing, which was great, great school to be in. And but ended up going back into an implantable pump startup called Sequana Medical. It's now public on the Belgian exchange. And then got drawn into structural heart, in fact, which had kind of replaced in a way coronary as the focus of a lot of the innovation. And so I worked for DirectFlow Medical for 3 years. I set up all of their commercial operations in Europe, 60 people, did 18 million the first 18 months, go, and loved that. I mean, that was, again, early innovation, a procedure that was changing in front of your eyes, cases going several hours and 17 people in the room. And when I left, it's like 2 people in the room and 35 minutes. And so you've seen this progression of how technology and, the physicians and the entire procedure and imaging and everything comes together to push it forward. And at the end of that, I kind of felt like I'd done what I wanted to do and wanted to get to the CEO level. And I met Tim Lenihan, who was at MD Start. And MD Start was an incubator, essentially funded by Medtronic, Covidien, Sorin, Sofinova in Paris, and Versant Ventures. And the idea was, medtech companies get a lot of ideas from docs, but it's very difficult for them to kind of do anything with them. I mean, it's hard to especially take outside ideas and innovate them inside a big medtech. So the idea was MD Start would kind of incubate these ideas and then get them funded and let them fly out into the world, right? So Tim Lenihan, who was a partner there, had taken LimFlow from concept by Dr. Martin Rothman, who was the CEO of Medtronic Vascular at that time, through to first in man in Singapore, through to Series A, and they had were just closing the Series B, no employees, totally virtual company. And so Tim and I had known each other for years on and off, and he was like, okay, and I'd actually looked at LimFlow 3 years before, and it was kind of a half-time CEO role. And I was like, well, I can't take a half-time job. I need
Right, especially you, right?
My wife would not be happy if I came home with like a half job.
Half the paycheck, half the equity, but 2x
I
on
mean,
the
I think
work.
we'd have some big discussions with myself and the family. But then he came back and said, no, we've progressed it. And I'd actually told him this is a little bit early stage for what I like to do. I'm a little bit farther down in the life cycle. And so, and he was like, well, we're about to get CE marked. This is the real deal. And it was a perfect first-time CEO role. I mean, oftentimes first-time CEOs you've seen it again and
they
again.
Get the bottom of
they
the
get the
barrel usually.
worst, right? People call you up and they're like, well, we tried to raise money from everybody else, and we think you can raise the money. And you're like, yeah, okay. I know the same people you know, right? They're going to be just as happy to tell me no as they were to tell you no. So, but Tim had, Series B was kind of teed up, and I knew that they had put in all the building blocks in the proper way. I mean, oftentimes when you have a founder, inventor, right, they may have done engineering great, but they've forgotten IP, or the
quality systems aren't there,
systems not
regulatory's
there,
halfway.
right?
Yeah.
So, and Tim had everything kind of, albeit some parts embryonic, some parts highly advanced, but in the right kind of level. So I knew I was inheriting a good package, that I could work with, and I had some money. And startup, that's the key, is that you have to have a little bit of runway. You
had a low burn too, because it's pretty virtual.
It was. There was nobody there, right? So I could hire the people, and that's the other thing first-time CEOs get caught with, is a bunch of people that may not be the right fit, and they're spending their time changing people. So I came on and was able to assemble a team. And was super lucky in that, very quickly was able to pull in Thomas Engels, who ran the Spirit 3 trials for Edwards, the Zions trials, which are still the landmark trials out there, had been at several other startups, and was just coming off another role where he had basically just gotten FDA approval for the product, the Claret device for TAVR, and so he was like primed to do the next thing, and based in California, which was important for me because I wanted someone who could run FDA trials and be on the ground in the United States, even though I was in Paris. Then ultimately brought on Sophie Humbert, who's our chief operating officer, French, brilliant, double PhD, she was just coming out of ART, bioresorbable stent company, and so was able to bring her in to run the R&D side of things, and build it up from there. And so now we've got just a fantastic core of people. Three Europeans on the leadership team, 2 Americans, plus myself, who is like Iceland, somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic in terms of culture, I think now, and gel that team together and really focus them on the project. And since then, we raised the Series B from BPI France, which is the sovereign wealth fund of France. And then ultimately raised a Series C from Sofinnova, which is just has a fantastic track record. Had funded CoreValve, had funded Shockwave, just Recor Medical. Go down the list of great companies that have kind of had Antoine's brilliance behind it, and the Sofinnova team's efforts, and just great backers. So we really could take that next level and expand the team to where we are today.